Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Mental Health Impact Series show. Today is season 2, episode 22. And today's discussion is going to be very valuable. We're going to be talking about how high performers are sabotaging their mental health with a very special guest. Before we get started, here are some key facts. And we have gotten these facts from an article written by our very special guest, and that was published on CNBC.com. Did you know nearly half of Americans say they are unhappy at work, including successful entrepreneurs and C-level executives? Did you know the main source of dissatisfaction, their constant pursuit of success, which is how many, especially overachievers, measure their self-worth? Aiming for a deeper understanding of yourself and what you want can lead to heightened success and healthier, happier mindset. Without any further ado, let's welcome our special guest today, Keren Eldad from Austin, Texas.
Hi there.
Hi, Keren, how are you?
How are you? What a pleasure. What a wonderful introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. Keren is an ICF certified master and executive coach. Keren, what does ICF stand for?
International Coaching Federation. It is the gold standard of coaching accreditation. So for people who think we're a Wild West or a snake oil industry, actually there is a body of ethics associated with coaching. I'm a big stickler for accreditation, and thanks for pointing that out and asking that.
Of course, I think that's very important. If you don't mind me asking, Keren, what brought you here today?
To this interview or to my career?
To your career.
My career happened because I am exactly the clients I coach. I used to be exactly the clients I coach is the more specific way. I was an overachiever, big superstar who never ever stopped pursuing goals and working really hard. And I just collapsed. I ended up at a point of not only complete burnout, but with a lot of bigger, heavier fines to my success. The first was I married very poorly and I went through a divorce. The second was I really ended up losing my job and losing everything. I just completely collapsed. And through that, I was very lucky because that's when I started to say, all right, well, if we play the game differently, how can we rise again and not recreate this hamster wheel that was absolutely draining me, that was not making me happy? And that's how I came to coaching myself. And through the work and seeing the change in myself, how radically it changed my life, how radically it changed my mental health, my mental well-being, and therefore my results and my success, I decided I have to do this for everyone else who is like me and who needs to hear this story from somebody who went through it.
That's beautiful. I think the most incredible things from life comes from our personal experience.
Always.
Yeah. So from your experience, Keren, coaching C-level executives and high achievers, how long have you been in this industry, in the space for?
Almost 5 years now. And that's actually a tremendously short amount of time. So I'm pretty astounded that I've managed to coach at this point well over 550 individuals. And if you include coaching teams and groups, well over 800 individuals. So it's really an amazing accomplishment for 5 years in practice. But what I think has really been transformative for me in doing the work was starting to experience that time doesn't matter to me anymore. I can get a lot more accomplished and I'm much easier, much gentler with time. So you actually think that you're doing a lot more than before, but you're exerting way less effort. So to me, that's been the biggest discovery of the last 5 years and a sign that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do.
I love that. How do you see high performers are sabotaging their mental health today?
Well, this is the key of today's discussion. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why would overachievers have a different set of problems than everybody else. I'll explain it to you very simply using terminology that was actually coined by Gay Hendricks, who wrote a wonderful book called The Big Leap, huge bestseller, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he described it as an upper limit. I've called it the superstar paradox. It's when your life looks really, really, really good on Instagram, but actually doesn't feel anywhere near as good. So let's talk about the vast majority of the population. The vast majority of the population, as you mentioned, according to several happiness studies, less than 50% are actually happy. I actually believe that that number is 33% are happy at work. Most people are really deeply unhappy in many aspects of their lives. It's exactly the same for overachievers. That doesn't change. What changes are the reasons. For the majority of society who are not overachievers, and let's define overachievers for a second. It's not just CEOs or C suite executives, it's really anybody who has achieved success above and beyond the norm in their society. And usually these come down to financial success and status success for whatever reason, and whatever that means to you. I've coached people from Jeddah to Manila, a superstar, always pretty easy to recognize. They're the ones who got really good grades in school. They're the ones who have very serious financial achievements to sit on, right? That are above and beyond the norm.
Yeah.
They're different in the following way. Most people have a lower limit to success. They're always thinking about the bottom falling out. And usually when the bottom falls out, it's not really up to them. It just happens, right? We lose jobs, we have performance issues, etc., etc. For the superstar or for the overachiever, there's an upper limit to success. And it's not usually challenges that are sabotaging their success. It's not really events. It can be events, but it's usually them self sabotaging their way to success. In other words, the superstar, because of their relentless pursuit, is constantly watching their back. And because they're constantly watching their back, they always think the other shoe is going to drop. And because they're always thinking that the other shoe is going to drop, they're going to be discovered. The success is not real. The success is not sustainable. There are going to be a lot of problems that come with the success and with more money. These are the tracks in their heads. They do something to sabotage their success themselves. In that article that you mentioned in CNBC, let me just talk about a couple of ways they do this. The first is perfectionism. Perfectionism is not just measuring up to high standards, it's beating yourself up for not getting high standards. And that punishing behavior, man, that is the most limiting behavior of all. You are going to burn out at some point. And I know there might be superstars out there who would be like me 10 years ago. I would say, no, I'm never going to work out, burn out. I can do this forever. Yeah, you will. Just wait. Number two is people pleasing. They do so much politicking. They behave in a way that's always designed to try to avoid conflict and try to, if they do have conflict, cover their derriere. That's a people pleasing behavior. Don't know when to say
Yeah.
no, don't know when to put on the brakes. Overcompensating behaviors like lying, like dropping names, like borrowing the status of their university 20 years after they graduated. These are overcompensating, people pleasing behaviors. And those are just two examples of just classic superstar sabotage. And hopefully, people will take away the biggest takeaway, which is it's uncomfortable to live in worry. And I think that that's what the overachiever really wants. The overachiever wants peace and wants to enjoy their success. You should be able to enjoy your success. It's a wonderful, marvelous thing. And there is such a thing as mastering your mindset to the point where you're not scared anymore. You're happy, you're thrilled, and you know exactly how to get more success and enjoy it.
That's beautiful, Karen. We have a couple of comments from the audience. Mental health is such an important aspect that high achievers need to pay attention.
Yes.
Just look at the Olympics and
Yes.
how many top performing athletes are struggling with your mental health.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you
let's
for
talk
sharing.
about that for a second. That's the best question ever, especially now we are speaking in an Olympics week.
Yeah.
And in a critical week. This is the week that Simone Biles withdrew from competition to guard her mental health. I want to say two things about this. The first I want to say is mindset will set you free. And the second thing I want to talk about is vulnerability will set you free. Number one, you have to prioritize your mindset. Think about it. Superstars don't have a choice. You can be as perfectionist and as aggressive and as hardworking as you want, but ultimately it's going to cost you. If Simone Biles, a person whose physical well-being is at stake, goes on that field without her mindset super tight, she could break her neck.
Yeah.
She could, God forbid, cause extreme harm to herself. And not prioritizing herself is an act of self-sacrifice. And I want every overachiever and superstar to understand that. When you choose workaholism, when you choose people pleasing, when you choose to sacrifice your own preferences incessantly, you're ultimately sacrificing yourself. And that's just not okay. Not only is it finite, you are damaging yourself. The second thing I want to say is vulnerability is the way forward. Choose your mental wellness first, and second, choose vulnerability. Vulnerability is the ability to look bad and to possibly and to be honest, even if it might cost you. And to that end, I want to ask everybody to consider that vulnerability, as Brene Brown has shown brilliantly in her work, is not weakness. It is power, it is strength. And here's how we can prove it with another superstar of the Olympics, Michael Phelps. I ask you, who's the bigger superstar? Michael Phelps, undefeated champion, gold medalist, or Michael Phelps, Olympic champion, who is open enough to say, I have struggled with depression and anxiety. I too suffer with my mental health and want to take good care of it. I think it's a much braver Michael Phelps, the second Michael Phelps. So if any overachiever wants to start overcoming perfectionism, overcoming workaholism, overcoming people pleasing, all the overcompensating behaviors that they're using to block themselves from reaching the next level, blasting through that upper limit that we talked about, their keys are number one, prioritize your mental wellness. Care about it. Care about your mindset. It is everything. And number two, take vulnerability as courage, not as weakness. Start to really walk honestly and show up authentically as who you are and open up about this stuff.
That's beautiful, Keren. We have another comment from the audience here. Keren, really appreciate you speaking up on such an imperative topic. This is much needed. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And you're dropping bombs here, to be honest. I would love to I'd love to further this discussion a bit more and bring it right now to the present moment. Let's say, Keren, I've come a very long way, but I used to be that person that did not know what my limit is. In fact, till now, I'll have some friends tell me that you don't stop, that you don't know when to, I don't think you know your own limit and when to stop. So for people like me that aren't even aware of what that limit is, what advice could you share for them to be more self-aware in order to avoid burnout?
Well, let's talk about that. First, you're talking about workaholism. Workaholism is a very classic form of superstar paradox or upper limit. It's an upper limit behavior. We are overcompensating and we're actually sabotaging ourselves. So the first thing you need to convince yourself of is that it is sabotaging you and not helping you. The reason we are addicted to working very hard is because it's gotten us everything we have. It's gotten us to stay thin. It's gotten us financial results. It's gotten books written, right? So we become very addicted to the doing. But here's the problem with it. The problem with workaholism is when it goes too far. It's just like perfectionism versus high standards. Perfectionism is high standards that went too far because they hurt. Workaholism is hard work that has gone too far. It hurts. It's not supposed to exhaust you. It's definitely not supposed to burn you out. Here's why. Think about it this way. My ex-husband is a wealth manager. Wealth managers every 6 months have to give up all their devices, their Blackberries, their iPhones, their phones, whatever devices they're using for 2 weeks. The reason for that is the bank says if you are conducting fraud, you have to be on the ball 24/7. So if we take away your devices, you cannot conduct fraud or we can catch it more easily. Mm-hmm. Workaholism is fraud. Workaholism is the belief that if I ever stop working, the whole jig is up. I will be caught for the fraud that I am. This whole operation falls apart. Something terrible is going to happen. I'm going to lose all my money. I can't afford to take 2 weeks off because 2 weeks off is too detrimental to the operation. So if you understand what's happening there, you understand you're not really a superstar. You're behaving like a person who is afraid to be caught. A real superstar is free, is at peace, is deserving. So start calling it out for what it is. And also start understanding that the reward isn't even commensurate with the work. If it were, then, I mean, technically speaking, Jeff Bezos would have to work 100 million times harder than I do. And he doesn't. He doesn't work 100 million times harder than I do. So why would I accept that I need to work all the time? That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous premise. If you start to understand that, then here's your antidote. Are you ready?
Yeah.
How could you solve this problem? You can solve it either by having a big crisis like I did, or just by considering for a second your own mortality. You and I and everyone out there listening to this wonderful talk will die. If we can just consider that for a moment, we can start to put things in perspective. Is this really what you want to do with your one precious life? Is this really your preference? Isn't there any other way you could savor this day? And you're going to start unwinding from workaholism.
I love that.
By the way, it
It's,
dies really hard. I know. I still have intense tendencies myself. So be easy
yeah,
on yourself. It's okay.
absolutely. And, you know, like for me personally, I come from a place of being of service. So if I'm working and putting in those extra hours, it's probably because I don't think I am where I could be in order
Yeah.
to help more people.
But now you understand that actually the premise is flawed, because to be of service, I mean, you're of service to me right now. Why would you need to burn yourself out to be of service? There's a really big difference between being a person of service and being a person with no boundaries. And here's what Brene Brown did find about compassionate people. Truly compassionate people have boundaries of steel. I definitely do. I do this for a living. And believe me, if you call me outside of coaching hours, I will not serve you. I can't. Me exhausted doesn't serve you. Me tired and overrunning myself to serve you is a ridiculous premise. It's not service. It's dormant. Of services, I'm full. What do you need?
I love that, Karen. Okay, we have another question from the audience. This is a question or a comment. We have a question and a comment. So we'll start with the question. Do you feel that social media is the biggest factor behind high achievers feeling this pressure and struggling with your mental health?
No, but it's a big factor. So the first thing I want to say is the world of positive psychology does not think that things are happening to you. We think things are happening for you. It's simply a much better way to synthesize information and to give yourself your power back, even when you're dealing with trauma. Even when you're dealing with trauma, and you know, I'm also a crisis counselor, a suicide counselor. I really believe that the key to surviving the most terrible things in life is to really ask yourself, what else might this mean? What might be possible through this? Is there any other way to see this? Always. And therefore, social media can also be seen as a big liberating tool that allows us to connect with wonderful people and to watch cat videos, which are my favorite thing in the world and will never make you feel bad about yourself. Cat videos are enriching, not life-taking. At the same time, the way we use social media can be a very problematic factor, even at older age groups. So the age groups above 40, who thankfully are usually only on Instagram and on the Facebook.
Yeah.
And that comes down to how you're consuming social media. If it is toxic, in other words, you're constantly scrolling and it makes you feel bad to see other people living their best life, which is fake, and on constant vacations, which is ultra fake, and curating moments from their life like they're living in a Disney fairy tale, like which is fake, and it hurts you, you really need to curate and curb the amount of time you spend on social media. And nobody can say they can't do this. Of course, we all have an addiction to a certain degree. But if you start putting, again, boundaries around how much you will use this and how you use this. I use social media to post and to interact with people like you, with whom I am co-creating and working, and to answer the comments of my audience. I am not using it to mindlessly scroll. And if I ever do need it for numbing purposes, I like interiors and I like animals. And those never hurt me. I never feel bad looking at a fabulous carpet or a happy cat. So learn that you are the master of your own mindset. And if you're able to curate how you use this, it will not become something that infuriates you. It will become something that empowers you.
That is just so, so profound. Karen, you are amazing.
Thank you. It's a
I
pleasure. It's a
really,
pretty simple thing, I think. I hope young people can hear it. I know how hard it is. Look, I hear the kids on the most of the callers on crisis text line are under the age of 25, and many of them are young children. They're 12 years old, 13 years old, 14. I know how hard it is to not see all that pressure, but just try. That's all I'm asking. Just try to pay attention to other things. We are naturally distractible animals. We love other shiny things. So you will get distracted. And the good news is that's how you can start to control your focus.
I love that. I quit my job 5 years ago. I was working in
Mm.
the ad tech space and I founded Reach Out Together Foundation. Never had run a non for profit before, but I've grown up volunteering for one throughout my life for different charities. And it actually happened after the passing of my twin brother, Tushar, to suicide. And from that moment onward, I would reflect, like, why have I been chasing money? Because I feel like all my life I just wanted to set myself up and make my parents proud. We didn't come from a very wealthy background. I've seen my parents work very hard, and literally all my life my mindset was make money, make money, make money, until that very moment 5 years ago. And that's how Reach Out Together came around and about. But the hustle didn't stop there. Everything you shared today about,
Yes, but you know what did change? What changed was the meaning. What changed
yes,
was the meaning. The hustle, I still work hard, but what I do for a living today gives me life, doesn't take life away from me. And let's talk for a second about what happened to you. You learned by example. And unfortunately, many of us learn through life's most horrific events. I did too. What's really interesting about it, however, is that you suddenly realize that there is no security. There is no security in the money or in the status. So why are you chasing such stupid things? There is absolutely no control. A wonderful book called Solve for Happy was written by Mo Gaudat about 5 years ago. And he said he was the COO of Google. He had several companies. He talked about how financially solvent he was, how he and his wife planned everything out and everything was going to be perfect. And then his son died with a fluke accident. Listen, you can't plan life, but you can serve. You can do what you really love. You can take risks. There is nothing safer than taking risks and doing what you like in serious, honest sincerity. And that's why I think everybody should do this work. Everybody should come to this work. It'll
I
change your
love
life.
it. This is so important. This discussion is so important. I want to thank everyone that's taken the time to watch this. People are going to come back and watch this. So, to summarize our discussion today, Karen, what would you say are some strategies, some tips that high achievers can take with them to improve their mental health and stop sabotaging their mental health? Two things you mentioned were mindset and vulnerability.
Yes.
Anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for summarizing that. But the most important step that any superstar or overachiever can take is be honest and admit that things are not as good as they look. That's it. That's the beginning of mindset, taking it back, and of marching through vulnerability. The hardest thing for a superstar is going to be to say, actually, things are not as wonderful as they look. And can you help me? That was the hardest thing for me to say to a coach way back when, can you help me? I don't have this all together. I don't have it all figured out. And that was the moment that changed my life.
Oh, that's beautiful. We have another comment from the audience here. This is such an important discussion for all high achievers that are burning out from the pressure of constantly achieving more and more. I second that. Thank you.
That's right. There is no more. You're welcome.
Oh, this is awesome. Okay, so we're wrapping up our discussion today. I feel like 30 minutes always tends to fly by so fast. But before we do, Karen, what would you, if you had a mic and the entire world could hear you,
Yes.
what would you like to say to them?
Be easy on yourself. You are doing way better than you think.
Beautiful. And what's next for you in your journey?
I want more cats. I really don't plan for the future anymore. To be very honest with you, I'm so satisfied with what is, and I'm so eager about everything that I'm doing right now. This is the most exciting time of my life.
Beautiful. Well, you are exceptional, Karen,
You
and
are too, my friend. You are too.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, the entire team was very excited for this discussion to hear your thoughts because this is a topic that I feel like we need to have more of.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. Ankita, thank you so much on the back
Thanks,
end and
Ankita.
supporting this discussion. We really appreciate you. Before we wrap up, Karen, do you know what our logo stands for?
The two hands? No, tell
Yeah,
me.
it's basically two fists put together. So in American Sign Language, this means together.
Oh, I love that.
We use the color orange because orange in color healing therapy, it brings out feelings of warmth and happiness.
Yes, I know.
And our vision at Reach Out Together is to heal the world together, conversation by conversation, community by community, because we truly believe that's how change starts by having those discussions. Like you said, creating that mindset, those boundaries, and being vulnerable. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time on a Friday to come out here.
Anytime. It's a pleasure, and we are all in this together. The ultimate tenet of every faith is love thy neighbor as thyself, because we are never alone. So that's a very important message.
I love that. And where can people find you, Karen?
You can find me on KerenEldad.com. Keren is spelled with two E's, so not like the Instagram memes. And on at Coach Keren, Keren, on Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here once again. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
No, I hope everybody has enjoyed this thoroughly. The information here can change your life.
I second that. If you'd like to reach out to her, please do so. And if you're still watching till the very end, thank you. If you have a message that you would like to share, reach out to Ankita from our team at ankita@reachouttogether.com. And if you know someone that may be struggling and they're not seeking any kind of professional help or other supports, please know that you're not alone. We at Reach Out Together run a completely free of cost program for anyone in the world. If they're looking for support, guidance, someone to do the research for them, send us an email at resource@reachouttogether.com. We have a team of trained individuals on the back end that will do the research for you, depending on where you live, and we'll send you custom resources, whether that's online help or physical help, psychologists, therapists, counselors, or other supports, self-help supports. Reach out to us. You are not alone. We are in this together. Thank you once again for watching. Bye for now, Karen. Talk to you soon.